Okay, so ready to dive in.
Yeah.
Today we're taking a look at Jennette McCurdy's memoir.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad my mom died.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pretty heavy title.
right off the bat,
It is. Uh, it makes you think
yeah,
before you even open the book.
it really does.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today. This isn't,
Right.
like a fluffy celebrity tell-all.
No.
No.
No. This is McCurdy dealing with some really intense stuff
Yeah. What's it about?
about her life,
Yeah.
especially her mom.
Yeah. It's the relationship with her mother and how that really affected her.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, right? It's not just like a surface level story.
Wow.
It's about, how those early experiences, like especially with her mother, Debra, shaped her whole life.
Right.
And how she eventually took control of her own story.
It's really that theme of control, right?
Yeah.
Control versus autonomy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see it right from the beginning. Debra McCurdy, her mom, was obsessed with making Jennette a star.
It's
Almost like she saw Jennette as part of herself.
Yeah.
Like someone whose success could make up for all her own unfulfilled ambitions.
It's almost more than just stage mom behavior.
Right.
I mean, you think of like the classic stage mom stories, but
Right.
coaching your kid to cry on cue.
It's a whole other level.
That's a whole other level of
control.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because this controlling behavior, it's actually pretty common,
All right.
especially in fields like acting, or sports,
Okay.
where parents often live through their kids' success.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's even a psychological term for it, parentification,
Wow.
where the kid ends up taking care of the parent's emotional needs.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So we see Debra exerting this control over, obviously, Jennette's career, but it goes so much deeper.
Oh, yeah.
She talks about how her mom controlled her eating habits,
Right.
her personal life, basically every aspect.
It's almost as if
Yeah.
Debra couldn't separate her own identity from Jennette's.
Right.
And what makes it even more tragic is that this control, this inability to see Jennette as her own person,
Right.
probably came from Debra's own struggles.
Yeah, makes sense.
She had her own body image issues, her own unfulfilled dreams,
Yeah.
and it seems like she projected all of that onto Jennette.
That's so sad.
It is.
When you get to the part where you realize that Debra encouraged Jennette's eating disorder,
Oh,
introducing her to calorie counting at such a young age,
that's awful.
it's just heartbreaking to think about.
It really is.
A mother inflicting that kind of damage.
Yeah. And it shows how these unhealthy patterns can be passed down through generations.
Right.
But it's important to remember that even with all this darkness,
Yeah.
even with this intense control, McCurdy still shows strength.
You can see it.
Yeah, resilience.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, she found ways to cope,
Yeah.
to make her own little world where she had some control.
It's interesting you say that because, it would be easy to just get caught up in the darkness of this story. But McCurdy's voice,
Right.
her writing style.
It's strong. There's this underlying strength to it.
Yeah. Even when she's describing these really painful experiences, there's just this spirit that will not be broken.
Absolutely. It's almost as if she's reclaiming her power just by telling her story.
Wow. That's a good point.
And that's what makes this book so interesting. Yes,
Yeah.
it goes into some really dark and difficult topics.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a story about surviving, finding your own voice,
Right.
breaking free from the people who try to control you.
And that's what's going to stand out as you read on.
You'll see.
We're going to see how this theme of control versus autonomy keeps coming up.
Right.
Especially in McCurdy's life when she enters the world of Nickelodeon
Yeah.
child stardom.
Yeah. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because on the surface, you've got this, seemingly successful child actress starring in this popular show, iCarly.
Yeah.
But McCurdy is so good at peeling back the layers of child stardom.
Right.
And showing us the darker side that we don't usually see.
It's almost like she's giving us a backstage pass
Yeah.
to this world that so many of us grew up watching.
Right.
And what she shows us is
It's unsettling.
really unsettling.
The long hours.
Yeah.
The media scrutiny.
Yeah.
The lack of privacy. All of it takes its toll.
It really does.
And McCurdy doesn't hold back when she talks about the manipulation,
Yeah.
the exploitation that she went through.
Especially by the creator.
And it's pretty clear she's talking about Dan Schneider,
Yeah.
the producer behind iCarly and a bunch of other Nickelodeon shows.
Right.
And her descriptions of those interactions
It's
are
disturbing.
so disturbing. Being pressured to drink underage, being put in really uncomfortable situations.
It really highlights the darker side of the
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah.
especially for young people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes McCurdy's story so important.
It's not just about her experience.
Right.
It shines a light on the problems in Hollywood.
Yeah.
The lack of protection for child actors.
A bigger
It
conversation.
makes us face this uncomfortable reality and ask ourselves, how can we do better? How can we make sure these young people are safe?
That's such a good point.
Especially for someone like you who's always been interested in the psychology of fame.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by that.
McCurdy's story goes beyond the gossip and makes us really look at how this industry affects young minds.
Yeah.
Exactly. And as you get further into the book, I think you'll start connecting the dots between McCurdy's experiences with her mother and the problems she had as a child star.
It's almost like a cycle of control repeating itself.
Yeah.
It's not just one person this time.
It's a whole system.
Yeah, it's an entire system that's perpetuating this whole thing.
Right.
You know? It's really interesting how those patterns of control, like they pop up in different ways throughout her life. You think breaking free from a controlling parent would mean you're free.
Right.
But like we see with McCurdy,
It's not that simple.
it's not that simple.
Escaping one kind of control can sometimes lead to another.
Right, especially in a place like Hollywood.
Exactly. It shows how complicated McCurdy's journey is.
Yeah.
It's not just a straight line to freedom.
Yeah.
It's about constantly facing and breaking down those patterns of control.
Even when they look like something else.
Yeah, even when they're disguised.
And that's what makes her experience on iCarly even more fascinating.
Right.
Because she's like at the top of her game,
Right.
surrounded by success, but inside, she's feeling this.
Unease.
Yeah.
Trapped.
And what's so powerful about McCurdy's story is that she doesn't hide from those contradictions.
Yeah.
She lets herself be vulnerable. You know, she admits that even with all the success,
Right.
something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And that takes guts,
Yeah, it does.
especially in an industry that rewards putting on a happy face.
Pretending everything's perfect.
It makes you think about the cost of all that pressure.
Right.
Absolutely. We see so many child stars struggle later in life.
Yeah.
I think McCurdy's story really shows us why.
It makes sense.
It's not just about missing out on a normal childhood.
Right. It's deeper than that.
It's about having your whole identity shaped by other people.
By their expectations.
And I think that's the heart of McCurdy's story.
Yeah.
Right? Her fight to be her own person.
To define herself.
Yeah, to define herself on her own terms.
You see it throughout the book.
You do.
These little acts of rebellion times where she tries to take control.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not always pretty or successful, but it's there.
It is.
This constant defiance,
Yeah.
refusal to be completely controlled.
And it's so inspiring to see.
It is.
She could have easily just,
Given in.
become another cautionary tale.
Right.
But instead, she chooses to fight.
To get back to herself.
Yeah.
Even if it means leaving everything she knows behind.
And that decision to leave acting,
Yeah, to walk away from that world.
that's where her real strength comes through.
It really does, especially in a society that says success is fame and fortune.
Right.
She chooses a different path.
Yeah.
Authenticity over awards, self-discovery over stardom.
It's such a powerful message,
It is.
especially for anyone who's ever felt pressure to conform.
It's like she's saying, success isn't one size fits all.
Right.
It's not about reaching some goal that everyone says you should reach.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out what matters to you
Yes.
and having the courage to go after it, even if it means going against the grain.
And what's so interesting is how McCurdy finds that strength, that freedom,
Right.
not through some big dramatic thing,
Yeah.
but by writing,
Just by writing.
expressing herself authentically.
Yeah.
That's where she starts to heal, take back her story.
It's amazing. Right.
It makes you wonder if her mother's death, tragic as it was
Right.
also like this catalyst for her freedom.
It's possible.
It's like losing that controlling relationship created space for her
Yeah, space to breathe.
to finally become her own person.
It's a really interesting thought. It goes back to that whole control versus autonomy thing.
Yeah.
It's like Deborah's death, as painful as it was,
Yeah.
gave McCurdy a chance to step into her own power,
Right.
to finally break free from that control that had been there her whole life.
And you see that shift in her writing too, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's raw,
Yeah.
honest. It's like she's talking right to you,
Right to you.
the reader,
Yeah.
sharing everything without holding back.
Yeah.
There's a vulnerability in McCurdy's writing that just pulls you in.
Yeah.
It's like she's letting us be part of her healing process,
Right.
witnessing her journey of self-discovery.
And I think that's what connects with people.
It's real.
Yeah, it's not some polished, perfect version of her story.
It's messy, complicated, and
Yeah.
ultimately it's proof of how strong the human spirit can be.
Yeah, I was really struck by how she talks about therapy as a big part of her healing.
It was important for her.
It wasn't just about dealing with a trauma.
Right.
It was about learning to reparent herself.
To give herself the care and understanding she didn't get growing up.
That's a really powerful idea, right?
Yes.
That we can actually reparent ourselves.
Yeah.
That we can learn to be kind to ourselves.
Nurture ourselves.
In ways we might have missed as kids.
I think McCurdy's story shows this process beautifully.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing those unmet needs, those emotional wounds.
And finding healthy ways to deal with them.
Exactly.
And it's not just therapy, right?
Mhm.
She talks about finding comfort in writing.
Expressing herself creatively.
Yeah. Like those creative outlets became a kind of self-therapy.
Right. A way to process her experiences and get her voice back.
And it makes you realize how important it is to find those outlets.
Those healthy ways to cope.
Yeah. To express our emotions, to make sense of what we go through.
To heal.
And for McCurdy, writing was that lifeline. It was how she broke free from the silence.
Yeah.
And finally told her story on her own terms.
Powerful stuff.
And I think that's what makes the title of the book so powerful.
I'm glad my mom died.
Yeah. Even though it might seem shocking at first.
I know. Right.
It's not about celebrating death. It's about taking control.
Yeah. Taking back your life.
Recognizing the complicated truth of a difficult relationship.
It's about realizing that even in the closest relationships,
Yeah.
there can be hurt. There can be control.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves
Yeah.
is to break free from that.
Even if it means grieving a loss.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
I think it speaks to a bigger conversation we're having as a society.
About family.
About grief, about the complexities of love and loss.
Right.
It's about challenging those perfect images of what a mother-daughter relationship should be.
Right.
And admitting that sometimes even the strongest bonds can be painful.
And McCurdy's memoir is so brave because she doesn't shy away from those truths.
No, she doesn't.
She doesn't try to sugarcoat things.
Or pretend everything was fine.
She lays it all out there.
The good and the bad.
Yeah.
And in doing that, she shows us the real, messy truth of healing.
Breaking free.
Taking back your life.
It's a reminder that healing isn't a straight line.
It's not always pretty.
But it's always possible.
It is.
And that even the hardest experiences can become something meaningful.
Yeah.
Something that helps us grow.
To learn.
And ultimately become more ourselves.
That's beautifully put.
Thanks.
It's about finding those bits of hope in the darkness.
Yeah.
Those moments that remind us how strong we are.
And I think that's what McCurdy's story shows.
Yeah.
The power to rise above.
To heal.
To create a life that's truly ours.
Even when it feels impossible.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
What's that?
All that pressure she felt.
Oh, yeah.
To be perfect.
Right.
Especially as a child star.
It's a huge part of the entertainment industry.
I mean, it's like she had to be this flawless, always happy person.
Right. Yeah. For the public.
While inside, she's dealing with all this pain.
And any sign of weakness, it's seen as a failure.
It's not just Hollywood, though, is it?
No, not at all.
I think we all feel that pressure sometimes.
To fit in.
Yeah, to show everyone this perfect version of ourselves.
Especially with social media.
Oh, totally. Everything's so curated.
Filtered.
It's like we're all putting on a show.
Trying to look perfect.
Like we have it all together.
And that's why I find McCurdy's honesty so refreshing.
Me too.
Yeah.
She's not afraid to be real.
To show her flaws.
Yeah. To let us see the person behind the Sam Puckett character.
The real Jennette.
I bet this really resonated with you.
Definitely.
Given your psychology background.
It's like she's giving us all permission to be imperfect.
Right. To say it's okay to not be okay sometimes.
Exactly. Especially for young people who are constantly bombarded with these images of perfection.
It's a good reminder that those perfect pictures we see.
Yeah. On social media.
Or in magazines.
They're just that. Images.
They're not the whole story.
They don't show the real person.
Right. Just a carefully constructed version.
And when we compare ourselves to those impossible standards, we start to feel bad.
Like we're not good enough.
It can really hurt our self-esteem.
McCurdy's story reminds us that real strength comes from being authentic.
From owning our flaws.
Yeah. Letting people see the real us,
Even the messy parts.
What's so inspiring about McCurdy?
What do you mean?
She doesn't just admit her flaws.
Yeah?
She finds humor in them.
Even when she's talking about the toughest times,
Yeah.
she still manages to make you laugh.
It's like she's saying, yeah, life's hard.
But you can choose to cry about it or find something funny in it all.
And that's such a healthy way to cope.
Oh, absolutely.
To not let the bad stuff consume you.
To take back your power.
It's amazing how far she's come.
I know, right?
From this young girl controlled by her mother.
To this incredibly strong woman.
Who found her voice.
And is now sharing her story.
On her own terms.
It's really something.
It really shows the power of healing, self-discovery.
Yeah. The human spirit's ability to overcome anything.
Before we wrap up.
Sure.
Gotta ask you this.
Okay.
What do you think McCurdy's mother would say about this book?
Wow. She could read it.
That's a tough one.
I know. It's a complicated relationship.
Yeah. I imagine she'd have mixed feelings.
Yeah. Hurt. Maybe even betrayed.
But maybe,
yeah.
just maybe, there might be some understanding,
Sure.
realization of the pain that was caused.
Even if it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
It's impossible to know for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think McCurdy wrote this to bash her mother.
I don't think so either.
It was about her truth.
Yeah.
Her feelings.
And sharing her journey.
And it sparked these conversations.
About so many important things.
The pressures on child stars.
Toxic relationships.
Yeah.
Mental health.
The long road to healing.
It's a lot to unpack.
In the end, I think McCurdy's story gives us hope.
Hope.
It reminds us that even when things are really bad,
when we feel trapped,
alone,
there's always a chance for change, for growth.
To find ourselves again.
This deep dive into I'm Glad My Mom Died has been quite a journey.
It has.
Heavy stuff, but we also found some amazing insights.
About resilience. Finding yourself.
Speaking up.
It's been great exploring this book with you.
You too.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive gave you something to think about.
You're not alone in your struggles.
There's always help out there.
And there's always hope for a better tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep learning.
And keep diving deep into the stories that matter.